Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of Ball Talk with me, Lewis Bryon. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Talk Sport 2 presenter Olly Clinks. Olly, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you very much. Special guest.
Yeah, special guest. Come on.
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yes, I'm great. Good. I'm very happy after obviously it's Thursday now, after the Tuesday night, I think it was, 5-0 win. Arsenal-Chelsea. Did you catch the game?
I did. And I live with an Arsenal fan, so it was a very happy house by the end of the night. But also, Liverpool lost yesterday as well. And I got a text from you this morning saying, 2-horse race, with a little horse emoji as well. So
I was ambitious.
So you're very excited as well.
2-horse race, and I checked the table again after, and I think maybe it's not.
Yeah, maybe a 1-horse race. Yeah,
yeah, it's probably more likely actually. We'll get onto the Arsenal game. What was your general thoughts on that from just on the game?
I think it's such a good response from Arsenal, because when you look at Arsenal last season, you'll know better than me here, but I was at the Arsenal-Brighton game in particular when they lost 3-0, and that was it. They'd had that Southampton game where things had gone disastrously wrong. They drew 3-3, and it seemed like the end of the title challenge. Then you got to that Brighton game, and that was when you thought, right, that is it. Whereas this time around, I'm really impressed with the character. I'm not surprised, but I'm really impressed with the character of Arsenal, because they bounced back so brilliantly well. And it's strange with Chelsea, isn't it? Because you don't really know which Chelsea is ever going to turn up. You've got the Chelsea that go and frustrate Manchester City at the Etihad, and they get a 4-4 draw with them at Stamford Bridge. And you think, right, well, if that Chelsea turns up, Arsenal are in for a game. I think it's good that Cole Palmer wasn't playing.
Yeah.
But would that have stopped the onslaught in terms of Arsenal's attack and the way that Chelsea's defence couldn't cope with it? I don't think it would have, really. And I actually thought, Arsenal, with the way they blew them away, it's a really impressive response, I think.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with Cole Palmer, I reckon they might have got a goal, maybe like 1 or 2, maybe, but they had a few players missing from the weekend, which is probably still a little bit of a hangover from that game. Big game. They probably should have won it if they had a different striker up front. So I think it's just, again, they're a young squad. They've gone for that blueprint of trying to buy the future,
Yeah.
And there's not really a blueprint of that. You've got to have a balance in there, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that mentality shift though as well? Because I just think, like you say, they are a young squad, and last season you could kind of see a bit of that naivety at times, and I don't think that was just the players as well. I think it was Mikel Arteta at times as well. And, they were obviously criticised sometimes for over-celebrating and things like that. I don't agree with that. I think, if you're getting a big win, you should be able to celebrate as much as possible. But maybe people were looking at that and thinking, Arsenal getting ahead of themselves here. Whereas this time around, they've obviously had the same accusations this time, but I think there's just more maturity about this side, and they're very much keeping themselves in this title race, and also, let's be honest with it's better to have the points on the board than the games in hand.
100%, and there's definitely more maturity, but it's just come from having a year of experience in it. And the celebrating thing, I think that the celebrating comes. They're not celebrating thinking, right, we've won the league, we're doing all this. It's trying to build that atmosphere and the morale within the team. I reckon Arteta might have said, listen, boys, every time we win a game, go celebrate, like make a point of it.
It brings that connection with the fans.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? It brings that connection with the fans, and we saw at the Emirates. There's that clip, isn't there, of that couple doing, having a little dance. And I love that. Why not? It's brilliant. So, how are you feeling right now though about the title race? How do you look at this running? Is other than the Tottenham game for Man City, which other of those games do you think that they might have a bit of an issue with?
To be honest, Tottenham's number one. That's their biggest problem, if you can call it a problem. But Brighton, I'd say away tonight. They're without Erling Haaland, I believe. So if it's not these 2 games, I can't see them dropping any points at all. And to be honest, I can't really see them dropping any points at them 2 games either.
What about Arsenal? Do you see Arsenal going all the way and not dropping a single point from now? Obviously, the North London derby's the next game as well.
I think it's a very big ask, and there's 2 answers to this. There's the answer I want to happen, and there's the answer, if you put a gun to my head, I think it's going to happen. And I think we will drop points at some stage. We've got hard games, you can tell we have looked a little leggy the last few weeks, and we're putting everything into every game to get these wins. So I said that about Liverpool actually. Liverpool have been putting everything into all these games, getting little scrappy wins, and they couldn't. you can't maintain that throughout the whole season. And they've started to drop off a little bit now.
Yeah, I think we'll maybe go into more detail on Liverpool a bit later. But when you look at the way that you're right, the way that Liverpool have won games this season, I think it's 19 games they've conceded first throughout the season, which is just eventually it's unsustainable. And actually as well, eventually you're expending so much energy. You're getting winners, like Nottingham Forest was in the 99th minute. All these games where they're having to push themselves later and later and later. And for me, you could always kind of see that wasn't quite going to hold out. And if it had held out, it would have been some title win for them, because the way they've gone about it it's been complete chaos and brilliant to watch. But it does feel like now that might be the final nail in the coffin with the loss to Everton as well.
Yeah, I feel like the points they've actually got on the board is probably more than what their performances have shown.
Yeah,
like they've done very well. They've got the most out of it. But yeah, like you said, they've been running on empty for a while now. And like you said, we'll get onto it later. But that Everton performance last night sort of just proved all that.
Yeah.
We'll get back to Arsenal Chelsea. We mentioned Cole Palmer not playing, and we thought, is that a big difference? Would that have made a massive difference? I'm not too sure. Do you think Chelsea should be worried? Pochettino should be worried?
I think Pochettino should be worried, yeah. I look at that team throughout this season, and everyone kind of brings up the price tags of the players, etc. But what I find when I watch Chelsea sometimes, and I think there'll be hopefully some Chelsea fans that relate to this as well. You've got a young team, I understand that, and that does cause limitations. Their transfer policy is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that they've sold so many players with so much experience and brought in, yes, a lot of raw talent, a lot of very, very good players, but it's clearly a blueprint that doesn't work. And
well, it's never been tested like that, really.
Exactly. And for a reason, and we've seen why. But I think the thing that would worry me a bit about Pochettino is sometimes when I watch Chelsea, firstly, I see a lack of fight with those players, and that might be because of the inexperience. But also sometimes you just look at Chelsea and you just think, I can't see a team that look like every single player knows exactly what their job is. And that has to go down to the manager. And I think that, yes, Arsenal are very difficult to play against, but that's what I found when I was watching them the other night. And because you've been in these kind of situations, is that something you kind of crave as a player from a manager's, just at least knowing exactly what you need to do on the pitch on any given day?
Yeah, you want everyone to know the roles of every single position on the pitch.
Do you see that from Chelsea? Am I
No, I don't. I'll tell you what, I don't see that from Chelsea. I don't feel like they all know how every single player needs to play and how they want to play. But to say they didn't have fight, I thought they did have a bit of fight on Tuesday night. I just feel like they've got a young team. I know you can't keep saying, using that as an excuse, but during the journey of a football match, the experience is how you navigate. It helps you navigate through the different moments. It's not all one. It's not all one way. It's not all the other. There might be bits where you have to sit off a bit, or there might be bits where you have to go at it. And knowing that isn't playing good or that isn't playing bad, so the experienced players know how to navigate that a lot better, and they just don't have that at the moment.
Yeah, I heard an argument the other day, just someone kind of saying, Nicholas Jackson, I think it's the same age as Erling Haaland, so he should be able to cope with this situation. And you just think, no, hold on, because Erling Haaland's playing with players who have been there, they've done this kind of thing, they've been in title races. He's playing it with a completely different calibre of players, so that argument doesn't work. It's just then when do you, how much blame can the transfer policy take before you start looking at Pochettino? And I'm just starting to, with some of those results they've had in recent times, that 2-2 draw with 10-man Burnley as well, you just at times I think have to look at Pochettino and just think, has he actually been doing enough? Because they've hardly improved this season at all. And in fact, can you name it?
I feel like they have improved.
Other than maybe a couple, can you name many Chelsea players who've improved since he took over?
Individual players, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean,
and does that not just say a lot?
Conor Gallagher, maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say he's improved. I'd say he's shown glimpses of what he's shown before.
Yeah,
but probably on a more often basis.
And then you might say Malagusto. Palmer, I think, just made an impact as soon as he came in.
But listen, they're 8 points better off than they were last year. The last couple of weeks, Chelsea have had good performances.
Still not good enough for Chelsea, is it? It really isn't. They're miles away from.
Listen,
they're 30 points off Arsenal.
Yeah, listen,
30 points.
It's not good enough for Chelsea, but the £1 billion he spent on the project, okay, on the potential, the £1 billion he spent on the potential. There's no point sacking him now. There is no point, because if you're going to go with that blueprint, which is what they are doing, you've got to give them time to reach it.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to lay questions at his door, but I do agree that I think give him one more window, which sounds bizarre because, like you say, they've just spent £1 billion. But I think the key for that window is they need to realise their mistakes, and they need to get in players with, for me, Premier League experience, or at least any kind of experience, older heads in that dressing room, in order to just help some of these players out. I just think
I agree,
sometimes
100%.
they look so lost. And just out of interest, because you obviously you played a lot of youth football as well, and I'm sure there would have been times where senior players would have come down and played with you. How valuable is the experience that they bring to the side?
You need it. You do need it in a team, which is why Chelsea are struggling. Like it might just be one little sentence, like, oh, listen, you're doing it on the ball now, but you need to get to work off it now.
Were there any players in particular that ever kind of came down and were really helpful for you?
Came down, it's more when you'd go and train with them who would look after you a bit more. Jason Punchin was always very good at it, and so was Scott Dan. They would help navigate you through the training sessions, navigate you through any matches you were playing with them. So them two were very good for what I just said.
Yeah.
I remember my first training session. It was my first ever training session with the first team, and he said exactly what I just mentioned, Jason Punchin. He said, listen, you're on the ball, you're doing it, you're good. But now, when you get to this level, you need to work off the ball now. And I thought, I'm trying. I'm trying.
But at least for you, were you there like, well, at least I know that I am trying to do the right thing. And you had a bit of guidance.
And it just makes your mind so much clearer to what you actually need to do. Whereas Chelsea at the moment, they have one experienced player, and he was on the bench on Tuesday, Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
So
do you know what kind of sums it up for me? That penalty incident in the win over Everton.
Yeah.
Where you've got these guys arguing about who's going to get a charity penalty, even though you've got your penalty taker on the pitch. Eventually, it's Conor Gallagher who has to come over, who's actually... Conor Gallagher's one of the most experienced heads in the team now. I mean, given that he's had loan spells, it is actually crazy. But I actually thought he dealt with that really well. It was just, it wasn't his fault that the situation had kind of got out of hand between Jackson and Madueke, but he came over, ripped the ball off, it gave it to Cole Palmer. But for me, that kind of typifies that situation. If you have players on the pitch with the likes of, I don't know, De Bruyne or I mean, do you know what's mad? The name that came into my head, because I was just thinking of City, was Kovacic, who Chelsea let go.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? That kind
who
of...
haven't Chelsea let go?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just an absolutely bizarre policy. And I actually thought Pochettino's comments after the game about that were good. But if you give him that window and enable him to get maybe some of those players to the door, if Chelsea's hierarchy can realise their mistakes, I think it would be fairer to judge Pochettino on that.
Yeah.
But actually, still at the moment, I do think there's a lot that he needs to improve on as a manager.
Even though they are better than last year.
Yes, because they're still nowhere near where they should be.
Yeah, but is that just looking at Chelsea and looking at the Chelsea that had Abramovich buying their success, really, and they're so used to that?
Even then, because actually, when you look at quite a few of the, I mean, this is ridiculous. We're talking about Chelsea, who won the Champions League in 2021.
Yeah,
and at the moment they're kind of maybe struggling to finish in the top 10.
Yeah.
That drop off is way too much. And I understand what you're saying. I understand that it is a new project, a new start, and everything like that. But the mistakes they've made have been absolutely ridiculous, and they almost, in a sense as well, didn't need to start again as much as they have. They didn't need to completely strip everything away, sack Thomas Tuchel, get rid of a load of pretty decent players, and then try and sign a load of young talent. Didn't make any sense to me at all. So the reason I say that is because of it's how far they've dropped off.
If you look at the last 2 years, it's almost been like, what have you done?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, they got to a final as well this season in the League Cup, and they deserve credit for that as well. But but actually, that there will be a lot of Chelsea fans that would, and I think rightly so, expect a lot more from their club given their recent history as well.
Yeah, and the solutions for you then is sign some experience.
That would be the way I would do it. Yeah, it almost seems too obvious to me that should be the way that Chelsea can try and fix themselves, because I think it will give such a boost to some of those players as well. Players like, I've even heard Joe Cole, the ex-Chelsea winger, come and say recently, just saying, I want to get on there with them. Literally, like we've just said, I want to get on there with them and just say, right, why don't you try this? Why don't you, don't do that?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And I just think
be saying that a lot, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. Pochettino can do, his best from the silence, but it's, like you've said, with that experience you've had, you sometimes, I think, need those players on the pitch telling you what to do, where to go, if you're one of those young raw talents that is coming through. Yeah,
and I think that sort of culture doesn't just come from the experienced players, but also it starts with the staff, I think. Look what Arteta and Edu done. The management, the staff, they've got to all buy into the manager's project and be on the same wavelength to create that good, buzzy atmosphere. And then that will translate into the players. If the staff are all doing that, then the players who aren't, they can filter in and out.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they need to start with it.
And also with Arteta as well, look at the way that, for the most part, he's signed a lot of Premier League proven players, a lot of experience in the Premier League already. Players like Trossard, obviously Declan Rice as well. He's made sure that he's seen them in these kind of environments and knows what they're definitely going to bring to Arsenal. Yes, sometimes it's taken a bit of a while for those to work out. For instance, David Raya, but with each one, there's been so much more. It seems planning about what these players are going to bring, rather than just saying, "Oh, he had quite a good spell at some club, let's bring him in because he seems like a bit of a talent," which is what Chelsea have done, and they've got this mix of players that clearly doesn't work.
Yeah, and we call them potential, but sometimes they might just not be as good as we think. We touched,
but also just quickly on that, do you think that's fair? Because those players had potential when they were playing in much more well-balanced teams.
Yeah.
So do you think I don't know, what do you make of this? Do you think it's unfair to maybe go, oh, they're all flops because they're all playing together?
Yeah, to say they're all flops is definitely unfair. Like, we see a similar situation with United as well. It seems like any players that go there are almost either take a really long time to get any sort of form, or like Jadon Sancho, they don't really find it, as you'd expect. So it's definitely the environment you're in shapes how you play, 100%. And if they're coming from a lot better environment, then it's going to be difficult to go into a different one.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, they lost 5-0, but I don't think you can. They played against an Arsenal side that has been on fire this season, very good last year. They're trying to bounce back and challenge for the title against probably one of the best teams we've ever seen. So they're going up against a really, really good side. You can't just.
Yeah, but let's be honest, mate. It could have been 6 or 7.
Yeah,
it could have been 6 or 7, and
Odegaard, by the way,
that's an embarrassment. It is a complete embarrassment. And yes, they're very good. I'm not taking anything away from Arsenal, but it's also an Arsenal side that a couple of weeks ago lost to Aston Villa 2-0 at home.
Yeah.
So,
no, you're right.
They can be got at as a side, and they are responding in that sense. But Chelsea just absolutely baffle me, as I said at the start. They're a side that at times have played brilliantly against some of the bigger clubs, and yet other times have completely capitulated as well. So I do think that's an embarrassing result for Chelsea.
My head just goes to, are them performances outliers? Like, are they the 6-0 against? That shows that they have got it. But it's just it's the young players where you can't navigate the different games.
Complete inconsistency. Yeah, exactly.
I'm guessing, obviously, you watched the Arsenal-Chelsea match?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think of... Because I was just absolutely amazed by... I mean, Arsenal played really good football. I was amazed by Trossard. He is a beautiful footballer.
Brilliant.
In every sense of the word.
Do you know what? I had this chat with someone as well the other day. Brilliant signing. And I actually don't think that signing's had enough credit. He's had so much impact for Arsenal since he's come in, and actually, let's be honest, he's had to be pretty patient at times. He's probably known that he wasn't going to be that player that was starting each week, but yet every time it seems, especially recently in recent weeks, when he's come on, he's made such an amazing impact. And then when he has been called upon to start, he's done a really good job. I think they tried him, didn't they, in the centre of midfield a bit earlier on in the season.
Yeah.
And he got a bit lost there for me, and that didn't quite work. And I think Arteta was still trying to work out, where should I put Havertz, where should I put Trossard? He had a few injuries to deal with as well. But yeah, you're so right. The way he plays, his movement, it's wonderful to watch, isn't it?
And he's so good to see a winger who's so good at finishing. He gets so many goals, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Gets so many goals. Odegaard, I thought, was unbelievable.
Odegaard he got man of the match, and for me, he was man of the match. He is a player that I just think, as a fan, you must just absolutely love to watch. He's got unbelievable technical quality, but his work rate as well is just absolutely incredible. Do you think that's what it is that marks him out as
I think it's all of it. His work rate is unbelievable. It's top, especially for someone who has the control of the football that he does. And he's just buzzes around the whole 90 minutes. He does not stop. And the ability to see passes, but just see them so quick and execute them, is so, honestly, it's so hard to do. I think he's Arsenal's most important player by some way. Yeah. Because Saka gets a lot of the headlines, so does Rice get a lot of...
Really? So you'd put him top out of everyone?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's our most important player. Definitely. Really? Yeah.
Do you know what else was interesting? You mentioned Rice there as well, was the way that Partey and Rice were played, which allowed Rice to be pushed further forward in the game. Do you prefer that situation where Rice is able to do that? Because I thought he was so effective. Even if you look at the first goal, I thought that actually, I think Rice maybe has said as well that he prefers playing in that kind of way where he can get further up the pitch. Do you prefer seeing him in that sense?
I definitely, when the game's more open, I definitely prefer that. If we're against a low block, I don't feel like Rice is. I feel like maybe we can get someone else who's a bit more cute. A bit more cute in them areas, and then have Rice deeper in a low block to control it a bit more. But when there's space, he's a powerful runner, as we see with a goal. He drove forward, committed him, timing of the pass was perfect, and Trossard put it away. His first touch, by the way, Trossard, people don't realise, with a first touch, all professional footballers can pass the ball well, can shoot the ball well. If it's a dead ball, they can pass, they can shoot the ball well with success. The thing that makes a pass or a shot good or not is how well they set themselves up with their first touch. If your first touch is perfect, the shot or the pass 9 times out of 10 will be good.
Is it the hardest thing though, the touch?
It's the hardest thing. It's the most important thing. But the best players in the world, you call Rodri a good passer. He has a great first touch. They're all good passers. He has a great first touch.
Interesting.
Do
you know what? I have to say, as a fan, for me, it's just something you completely assume. For me, it's just something I've just. For me, it's the thing you assume footballers are just best at, and actually the things they need to work on are things like passing, things like you just like, oh well, they've got the talent, they're able to have the touch. But you're saying actually it's the hardest.
Well, you look at someone messing up a shot you think they should get right. I guarantee you his touch wasn't exactly. It might be a bit too close to his body, a bit too far away. The weight weren't right.
Yeah.
Whereas, and don't get me wrong, there are good passes when you're spraying it 40, 50 yards. But in terms of the 10 yard, the 5-10 yards, the shots, it's the first touch that sets everything up.
Yeah, that always makes me think of, I think it was Peter Crouch talking about going to Liverpool training for the first time, and Gerrard just absolutely fizzing a pass into his feet and just thinking, right, this is the standard now. And it just ballooned off his foot. He had his 50p boots on and stuff like that. So, yeah, that is interesting. But you're saying that Trossard, that's what that.
I thought that goal as well that he scored, it was his first touch set it all up. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, amazing.
We'll talk about Liverpool actually. Liverpool Everton. Liverpool lost 2-0, Merseyside derby. I think the first time in 13 years that Everton have won that at their home ground. So I mean, I'll tell you what a
time to do it.
What a time to do it. And Everton come with a fight. And I've always said this with Liverpool, because their build-up play is sort of non-existent sometimes. They're so direct. And when they're 100% at it, it's fine. But if they're not quite at it and the other team shows them a bit of fight, it's very end-to-end. And that makes for a lot of chances conceded.
Yeah.
And which will equal, of course, eventually some goals.
Yeah.
So I always feel like if they're not 100% at it, the other team just needs to show a bit of fight, which Everton did. They won their 1v1s. They won a lot of the battles, and Liverpool was sloppy on the ball. Very sloppy.
And also, Liverpool miss so many chances.
They do.
And that's been the case for so long, and Klopp after the game just seems so. I think he said he wasn't angry; he was disappointed about the amount of chances they missed, which is
I can tell you he was angry.
There's nothing you can do as a manager about that. But I think you're right. I think I was actually I was lucky enough to be at the Fulham Liverpool game, and you're absolutely bang on about it is chaos, isn't it? Is. If they're streaming forward and if they're at it and they're on it. It's brilliant to watch. It's fantastic football to watch. But even in that game where they scored 3 goals, they must have missed 3 or 4 other really good chances in that game. And I think that's similar with last night. With Luis Diaz, I think missed a few chances as well.
Nunez could have definitely got one as well.
Yeah, and as you say, it opens them up at the back as well. And they've conceded so many goals this season, and you just feel that if you can hold on against Liverpool, and given how wasteful they can be with their chances. If you can hold on against them, they are beatable, and it's a brilliant win for Everton though, and it does keep them up as well.
They're pretty much up now, aren't they?
Yeah. People are saying it's ended the title, but that was a massive win for Everton as well. They've still got to play Luton, but now we said at the start that the title race looks like a 2-horse race. I think it's now looking, isn't it, between Forest and Luton for who stays up. So let's hope they hire the right VAR and that aren't Luton fans.
And in terms of the title race, I don't think that game actually made it a 2-horse race. I think their performances have sort of just made it a 2-horse race, in my opinion. Like these games will still, I reckon they'll have a couple more of these Everton Liverpool games towards the end of the season. I reckon it will be sort of on repeat.
Do you think
these type of games? Yeah, I can just can't see them. It's been the same the last 2 months really for Liverpool. I think so. But I
just think they were riding a wave for a very long time, and you kind of felt that potentially that whole farewell tour for Klopp and the general feeling around the club at the moment might have seen them all the way through, and somehow they managed to just continue to outscore teams and come back to win, and it's just run out of steam at the wrong time, and I don't know. I don't know if I think Liverpool fans will obviously be disappointed. Will they be incredibly surprised this has happened? Maybe losing to Everton, but will they be surprised that their title challenge has run out of steam, given what we've seen from them in terms of as we've just said, conceding goals, not scoring chances? I'm not sure.
They can't be. They can't be that surprised.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is Salah's not he's always been a volume shooter, and that's how he gets his goals. He'll shoot a lot, he'll miss a lot, but he'll score a lot. But he just don't seem to be for me the same player, especially the second half of this season that he has been.
He's had some poor games.
He has, and he's always been that player that if he's not scoring, his technique doesn't look the cleanest. So it's so easy to jump on that. Jump on that when he's not scoring to say, all right, he's lost it. But I do generally think, I don't know, I can see him leaving at the end of the season. He's not been the same player. Will he go back to being the same player? I don't think he will drastically next year. So
how for you do you think Liverpool try and avoid a drop off? Because this is going to be tough. This is Jurgen Klopp is a complete hero in that part of the world, at that club, of course. Anyone who comes in, it's an incredible opportunity to get, but it's some act to follow as well. And like you say, you're probably going to see Salah leave. You might see Van Dijk leave as well. I don't know if these players are going to think, right, that's the end of the Klopp era. I've had a great time here. It's time to maybe move on. So how do you think they avoid having a drop off after Klopp leaves?
I think it's near impossible to avoid any kind of drop off, but to limit it, I think you need to manage your expectations in terms of that's not saying for the fans, that's almost for the club, for the owners, for the recruitment, to not go and do a Chelsea and buy these players. You think, right, they're going to get straight back in it with this new manager.
I love that you've coined that, mate. By the way, do a Chelsea, that'll go down well.
Cut that out. No,
it's true though. No, it's true. I agree.
And for me, that's what they need to do. Maybe, like Arteta has done, sign, even if they're not the top bracket, sign players that are tested in the Premier League, proven and tested, and not these young players that you're not sure what you're going to get. They could take you all the way to the top. They could drop off and take you even lower. Keep yourself in and around it, top 4, while you're getting this new manager. See how he is, see what his plans are, and just don't. You need to manage your expectations, because we see it after, who was it? After Ferguson left. How many managers have they gone through now?
Exactly.
And the one after is always the hardest one.
Yeah, and actually when Klopp initially came in, there were a couple of years where they were getting to grips with everything. Like you say, a couple of kind of fourth place finishes, and then they started to really come through. And that's when Klopp had built his squad. When he'd got Robertson, he'd got Mane, he'd got Salah, Firmino, and then. Obviously we know how brilliant that team was. So I think you're absolutely bang on with everything you've said there about their future as well.
Yeah.
He's looking at Arnie Slot as well.
Yeah.
He's in talks. We don't know.
Yeah.
Of course,
which it does look like it's going to be him. Do you know much about him?
Not too much. No, I know that he was linked with the Spurs job.
Yeah.
Before Ange Postecoglou got that one.
Did he get to the final of one of the European competitions last year? In 2022, I think he did.
Yes.
In his first season with his current club.
Yeah. He's clearly someone who's highly rated. But yeah, I mean, that job is a huge football club. That is going to be very difficult for anyone who's coming in. But we're going to have to see if he can take it on. If it is him.
Yeah, if it is him. And I've heard he has a similar style to Klopp in terms of his playing and managing style.
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? Do you... And I think this would be the right thing to do, is that do you hire someone who has got a continuity to the way that Klopp plays? That seems to make complete sense to me because, and actually it's another question for you really. There's a lot of talk sometimes about clubs having a certain DNA and it all going through every single youth team and Liverpool is certainly one of those clubs. But is that a thing, at certain clubs where you are taught a certain way to play throughout the age groups, and it means that as you go up through the age groups, you're going to be ready for that first team. Yeah,
the majority of academies will do that, and clubs will do that, especially as you go up the age groups. Maybe not so much from like under 9s to under 12s, but especially as you go up closer to the first team, they'll want you playing more how the first team manager likes to play.
Yeah.
But what they do a lot as well, they like changing even mid-season throughout the age groups. The formations you play, obviously the manager will change every year, just so by the time a boy hits 17, 18, you can say, right, they've played in that formation. They've played in 5-6 different formations. So when they go, they might have to go on loan. They're a lot more used to it.
Yeah.
So it is still heavily about the development of the player rather than just making them perfect if they get in the first team.
Yeah.
Because we know how few that's far and few between. So.
Yeah.
And in terms of bringing in, what managers should they bring in, the same style, I don't think you should base it off. I don't think you should think, right, we need to get in a manager the similar style to Klopp just for the sake of it. And if he's not to the same bracket, the same, you can't just say, right, who out of these managers who's a similar style to Klopp can we bring in? Because if the top one's still not where you want him to be, you want to get a higher one that's maybe a different style. The transition might be longer from when he does come in. But listen, the ideal situation is you've found the manager you really like and he plays the same style as the club's just been playing.
Yeah. Jose Mourinho was at Craven Cottage to watch Fulham Liverpool.
Was he?
The other day, yeah. It's interesting, isn't
it? That is
imagine that. Oh, be
I would absolutely love it, but I cannot see it happening. That would be so good for the Premier League.
Box office, wouldn't it? It would be incredible.
Please let it happen.
please, Jose, please. It'd be incredible. But I mean,
would the Liverpool fans like that? I don't think so.
I mean,
you've got all over again, wouldn't it?
An ex-Man United manager. You've got an ex-Chelsea. I mean, they had a proper rivalry back then. Him and Benitez. I don't think he's top of their Christmas card list, put it that way.
Any bad performances, which is obviously going to happen early on, then they'd want him out. So I can't see that being a...
Be great to watch, though.
It would.
It would be great to watch.
Let's talk about City, actually, because they're playing tonight. They're playing Brighton. How do you think they're feeling? Because the pressure's, like you said, the points on the board now, the pressure's on City. Will they feel the pressure?
Do you know what?
Should they feel the pressure?
They've obviously still got the FA Cup final to be thinking about, but I think it's frustrating for Arsenal in particular. Now that Liverpool have lost that game, I think it's frustrating for Arsenal in particular that City are out of the Champions League. I think that if they'd had still something else to think about, a Champions League semi-final on the way against Bayern Munich as well,
really takes it out of you mentally, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you're right. And they've already won the treble, but the exhaustion of going for another one, you might have seen a bit of a strange result in the Premier League. Whereas I think now that all they've got to focus on is that one game with Manchester United, but also just getting past Premier League opponents that they know they can beat is a bit of an issue for Arsenal. And the other thing is, we said it earlier about the fact that Haaland's not fit, or I think they've got a couple of other injuries. They can just bring in
Alvarez, who's just won the World Cup.
Alvarez. Yeah, their strength in depth is so ridiculous, and they are so unbelievably difficult to play against. I just can't see them messing up.
They just seem like an immovable object at the moment, and they've got Arsenal chasing them. But
as well, people have brought up that record they've had at Spurs over the years, and the fact that they've found that ground really difficult. And I understand that. They've also won there this season. They won there in the FA Cup, and people have said, "Oh, that doesn't count as the cup." Well, I don't know. Like, that was two teams with their strongest lineups going up against each other. I think that does count for a lot. I think it counts for a lot mentally. They've been there this season and won. So
they do tend to struggle a little bit at Spurs.
They do. No, I understand that. They do. They don't like going to that stadium, but like I say, it's the fact they have gone there in this campaign and managed to pick up a win. I think will change their mentality going into that game, and I can just see them getting it all done. I'm afraid, mate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Gosh,
I know it's not the answer you want. I love you. I love you trying to big up Spurs. I mean, that's the level we've got to. You're there going, no, come on, Tottenham are great side. Never thought I'd hear you say it.
I know. I can't. Yeah, like you said. Well, I can't see it. Can't see it changing too much.
No. Do you know what? I hope it does. I hope there's a twist and turn. I really hope there are, but sadly they've been here and done it, and 4 titles in a row for the first time as well will be incredible. And do you know what's funny as well? I listened to an interview with Rodri a while ago, a while ago, and he was asked about, can you go on to do another double treble, and saying, yeah, potentially we'd like to. And then he was asked a really, really brilliant question where the guy said, right, I know you're not going to want to answer this, but he just said, right, out of those 3 trophies, which do you want to win the most? Oh, brilliant question.
Yeah.
Because he's already said, we're going for the treble, we want to try and win it. And he said, the Premier League. And without flinching, the guy said, why? And without flinching, he said 4 in a row. That
it's something that's being talked about.
Exactly. In that changing room, they want that so badly. Because you go down in the history books, don't you? And you become the first team to do it, which you can't say for a lot of teams, of course. So
would this be their best title win?
Yes.
City?
Yes.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Over the 100 points where they were, or the season where they were battling against that top Klopp team?
I think it would be their best title win because, firstly, it's off the back of winning a treble, and I think maybe, I know they've got a very impressive and massive squad, but the exhaustion of that season must have been ridiculous.
I think if you add all the context in,
the amount of games, the amount of games that they'd have had to play as well, and then to go into this season against a stronger Arsenal, against a Liverpool who just somehow kept on winning as well, and have been brilliant throughout the season as well. And actually, City struggled a bit at the start. They had a couple of losses right at the start of the season as well. That, for me, makes it more impressive than them blowing away the league.
Yeah.
I think taking on the best teams, having that competition there, because that is so much more to deal with mentally. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, if you add the context in of, you don't just take the individual season. If you take the individual season, it's probably not. But if you take the context in of the last 4 years, 5 years, like you said, they've done it 4 in a row now. There's a lot of... every time you do it, it gets more impressive and more impressive. Like you said, they're doing the treble again. So, and Arsenal are probably better than they were last year, giving more of a fight. I think I can see it being... Yeah, I could see it being the most rewarding for them after, feeling the best after.
Definitely.
100%.
Definitely. Hey, no one's done 5 in a row, so we might have a different winner next season, mate. Yeah. It's going to be Newcastle United, though. That's the problem. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to go on to your team now. Yeah.
Yes.
Your team,
yes.
Newcastle.
Yes.
You were at the game last night.
You can tell by my thick Geordie accent, don't you?
Yeah. That's how I tell. Yeah. You were at the game last night. Palace, Newcastle at Selhurst Park. Now, obviously, it wasn't on. I caught the highlights. It wasn't on telly, but.
It's good it wasn't on television.
About 40 minutes into the game, I thought, let me have a look at the stats. And Palace must have had about 15 shots, 7, 8 on target by half time. And Newcastle very few.
I turned to my mate in about the 67th minute, and I just said, "Have we had the ball yet?" Honestly, Palace were very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And I think what we've seen with them is Oliver Glasner has, I think, been brilliant because he's slowly embedded his style into the state. And he didn't come in and go, right, that's how Roy Hodgson played, not playing like that anymore, we're doing this. And I think would have led to the players maybe being probably a bit confused.
Yeah.
Probably a bit like, well, that's happened way too fast. He's bedded them in slowly, and you saw a real change to how they played under Roy Hodgson. The way they pressed Newcastle was so impressive. Honestly, I think Will Hughes has probably followed Jacob Murphy all the way back up to Newcastle. That's how close he was to him all night. It made it so difficult for Newcastle to have any control of the ball. It led to them making mistakes. It led to them also. They really struggled to get their attack going last night. And you think about how effective Barnes, Gordon and Isak were against Tottenham in that 4-0 win. They were incredible. I was so excited to see them last night. But eventually we were just stuck with Bruno Guimaraes, who actually had a really good game, I thought, despite the result. He played really well. But we were stuck with him essentially pinging long balls over the top for Isak to chase. And I mean, Isak hardly had any touches in the game. Not really by his fault. It's the fact that Newcastle didn't really have the ball. So, yeah, I was very impressed with Palace. I wasn't that impressed with Newcastle at all. I think that was one of their worst performances of the season because they just couldn't impose themselves on the game at all. Yeah.
And I think what you said at the start is key with Palace. The first few games, obviously the new gaffer took over. They still had hints of Roy Hodgson's style in there, and people were moaning like, "We've not even changed. Why are we playing the same way?" But like you said, you cannot do it too quick. It's so important to do it slowly and embed it step by step. And now you can really see that. I mean, Will Hughes looked. I think he's a top player. He's been so good. And
he was very good last night.
He looks like he's got they're getting the best out of him, best out of a lot of the players. Mateta's come back firing. He got a brace last night, I think, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. So and he took them both well.
Cheers, yeah.
2-0. Yeah. No, yeah. So I mean, Newcastle, that leaves them. I think they're 7th.
Yes, 7th. Yeah.
And is it 7 now that are getting the European spots?
It's still a bit up in the air. I mean,
is it 7th or 8th, or is it 7 and 6?
It's to do with who wins the FA Cup.
Yeah.
If Manchester United win it, that changes everything. Essentially, what you do know is if you come 6th, you're going to get into Europe. Yeah. So that's what they need to aim for. They're not. I mean, Manchester United won last night, so they're 3 points in front, but they do still play each other. They've still got to go to Old Trafford, Newcastle, and actually the next 2 games are Sheffield United at home and then Burnley away. So what you would hope is. I mean, Sheffield United put in a bit of a fight last night, to be fair. But
Man United are shambles, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what we'd hope is that Newcastle can try and push on from there. I'm really confident about their home games.
Yeah.
They've been very good for the most part at home throughout the season, as they were last season. They really do, view that as a fortress, I think. But yeah, the away form has been nowhere near as good this season as last season, which has been a bit frustrating. But
if you were to say now
to get 6, do you know what? I think they will. Yeah. I think they will. I think they've got the games coming up. They've
got the players as well.
Their fixture run is favourable, and yes, they do. And their fixture run is favourable. They're getting some players back as well. Callum Wilson came back last night, which I think is going to be a big boost as well. Because it just takes, even though he's been brilliant, it takes a bit of responsibility off Isak's shoulders to always be the one who's finding the back of the net, and it gives Newcastle a different option as well.
So I start smiling. I start smiling when you say Isak because I can see him in an Arsenal shirt very soon.
Can you really? Yeah.
I don't know. Like, do Newcastle have to sell, don't they, or do they not? I'm not.
They don't have to sell Isak. Do you know what I mean?
Do.
But they don't. Please.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, if Newcastle do need to sell, which I personally don't think they do, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But if they do need to sell, it makes so much more sense to sell. I really don't want to say this. It makes so much more sense to sell Bruno Guimaraes because they bought him for less money than Isak. They bought him for 40 million ish.
Yeah.
And Isak was more than that. I think 63. That kind of ballpark. So if you want to make more profit, which is what they need it for, obviously you can get a lot of money.
You're
for
speaking
Isak.
to Arsenal right now, aren't you?
Yeah. You can get a lot of money for Isak. That makes sense. But I think you could get more profit if you sell Bruno Guimaraes, who's actually, it's annoying because his performances are really kicking on.
Would that hurt you to see him go?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Either of them, and I just think it would be. This was always going to happen to Newcastle, I think, because firstly of the way that the rules have changed, but also that squad was always going to get to a point where it was completely imbalanced, and sadly, the value of players like Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett, etc., who are still at the club, you're never going to be able to sell them for enough money to then keep yourself going, keep them sustainable. So this was always going to arrive as a bit of an issue. But the reason why I don't think potentially Newcastle will sell, and I might be completely wrong on this, but I think that when you look at the players that will be coming back into the squad in the summer, which will probably include Nick Pope, who's been out for most of the season. Tonali eventually is going to be able to play again. Yep. Joel Linton will be back as well. Sven Botman will come back as well. He's had a really bad injury. But if you think about the fact that those players will all come back this summer, Newcastle, even though they're the players they've already had, will look like a completely different team. They'll look like a much stronger team. And so when you look at that, do they?
It's almost like new signings again.
Exactly. Do they need to make a whole host of different signings? Now, a lot of fans will argue, yes, they do, to get themselves up and get themselves competing even further. But if there was a bit of patience and importance to keep those players that they've already got, and a realization of that importance to keep those players that they've already got, do we have to sell this summer? I don't think we do. The other issue you've got, though, is whether Isak or Guimaraes want to move. They seem very happy at Newcastle. They seem very happy living in the city as well. But
I don't think that's too much to go off, because players will
always they're always going to say that. They're always going to say that. And you don't know about the pool of other clubs, But, I mean, the thing is, if you're Guimaraes as well, let's be honest, or Isak, if City or Arsenal come knocking, who do you join?
Yeah.
If you're being honest.
I think they'd join one of them if either of them come knocking.
But surely you'd join Man City over Arsenal?
If I'm Isak, I wouldn't, no.
Why?
Because
you'd be behind Haaland, I guess,
Be behind Haaland. Again, it's going to be one of them where you've got to really try to get in that team, and then you're in the team, and then you have one bad performance and you're back out the team. Yeah. Whereas you've got, look at Saka. Saka now knows, regardless of...
Does the injury record of Isak worry you a bit?
I'm not too...
There have been times where he's been out for a long spell.
Really?
Yeah. Just trying to put you off him, mate.
Yeah. Listen, it's not my decision. But listen, I don't think it's nothing. And if it's a recurring injury of the same thing, then it's something to maybe be worried about. But I don't think you can just go off someone who's been injured for a while before. If it's like a Reece James situation where it's like he keeps getting these similar injuries all the time, then maybe it's something to think about. But it's not putting me off him.
I think Isak would be the perfect signing for Arsenal.
It's Thierry Henry-esque, isn't he?
He's so... But this is the thing. For so long, the debate with Arsenal has been, they need a finisher, they need someone who's going to bag 20 a season. Well, Isak's on 17 this season. Yeah. But what I've seen this season as well is how much he has grown in strength as well. His build-up play's always been very good, but he is now fully adapted to the Premier League completely for me, and his link-up play is excellent as well, and that's what you get from Gabby Jesus. So essentially, you're getting, 2 for 1. You're getting a fantastic finisher and someone who can do things similar to Gabriel Jesus. He can also play on the left wing as well. He's an incredible player. So I'm praying that Newcastle are able to hold on to him. It does actually really frustrate me that has to happen.
Yeah.
That Newcastle shouldn't be a selling club. They shouldn't be a selling club with where they are now. It makes
I do think they should be
no sense.
Patient though, because like you said, as soon as they got the takeover, then they got Champions League. I think you just jumped you almost skipped.
They overachieved, overachieved, which was great, but they overachieved, And, but having said that, if they get 6th this season, for me, with all the injuries they've had, that's a very good season.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Given the cup draws they had, to get to the quarterfinals of both, and that Champions League draw was ridiculous, and they should have gone through because of that handball against PSG. Still not over that. So yeah,
I can tell.
But I would say that I think that if Arsenal signed, I don't want to talk about it, but if Arsenal signed Isak, they would win the league
next year. That's a big shout, and I think,
he's that good.
I think we will. Yeah, I think we would if we signed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd be happy. I said it last week. I'd be happy with Arsenal not making any other signings other than if it was just Isak. If it was the only one, I'd be happy with that.
He's the missing piece, isn't he? He is the missing piece. As much as I don't want him to be.
Little Ramsdale swap, I'd do that. As much as I love Aaron Ramsdale.
Can Ramsdale play up front? Is he?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
Would you take him there?
Ramsdale
over
question.
Pope?
No.
A lot of Newcastle fans are wanting him, from what I've heard.
I'm less of a fan, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I firstly think that we've seen this season how valuable Nick Pope has been for us. Like, yes, I think at times Nick Pope's kicking needs a bit of work, essentially. But I really, there's been times this season where I've been like, I can't believe my biggest problem with my goalkeeper before used to be that sometimes his kicks weren't great, because actually what he offers as a sweeper, keeper, as a shot stopper as well, I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. Aaron Ramsdale, hasn't played for a very long time, which I always think just worries me slightly. He's a very good goalkeeper, but you'll know as well, I think at times comes across as a bit erratic.
Aaron Ramsdale,
there is an error in him as well. And that slightly puts me off him, but it does seem like a move that would work. And actually, I would say as well, I think it's one mistake that Newcastle made this season was not getting goalkeeper cover in January. I think they should have done that because, Dubravka is
he did have some good performances, didn't he?
I think. I don't think he's an awful goalkeeper, Martin Dubravka, but he's just totally different to what Newcastle need right now, and this squad was used to. And I think how maybe there was all sorts of restrictions for Newcastle, but getting maybe a loan and maybe getting Ramsdale in would have been a really good option for them, and we might have seen some different results this season had they done so as well.
I think it's definitely a place to look at, and Aaron Ramsdale will be going somewhere in the summer, so I can see it being Newcastle. I just want to finish off by looking towards Sunday's fixture, Tottenham Arsenal. Okay, so this is it's a very.
How nervous are you? Out of 10.
You know what? I'm not actually too nervous because
You're not nervous?
Just because I feel in my head I've just assumed City are winning the rest of their games, but I'll be nervous on the day.
You're not nervous. But you're not nervous about Tottenham ending your title chance.
Are they ending it though? I'll tell you what.
Yeah, go on.
If City lose tonight, then I will be very nervous because then they can end it.
So much. Yeah,
because then they can end it. But at the moment, I just feel like I still feel like it's in City's hands. So.
I mean, Tottenham have not looked good recently. They haven't looked good.
Yeah, I'm quietly confident.
They were demolished by Newcastle. I think a lot of their players aren't clicking at the moment, but that stadium is going to be bang up for it. Absolutely bang up for it.
It does produce some atmosphere, that stadium.
It does.
Doesn't it?
But at the same time, Arsenal have done well this season on the big occasion. They have done really well. They got the draw at the Etihad, which actually they should have probably gone and won. They beat Liverpool. They beat Man City at home as well. I would take a lot of encouragement with how they've performed in those games heading into this one. Because again, when we compare them to the last two visits, which I think they've lost have they lost their last two visits to
Tottenham?
Or did they win their last one?
I'm not too sure. I don't think we did win.
They lost the 3-0 in the season where they were pushing for fourth.
Yeah.
For sure. I might be wrong to be completely honest, I can't remember last season. But either way, I think this Arsenal side is very different, a very different challenge for Tottenham to take on. And also, the way Tottenham play, that high line, which I just can't get my head round, I think that's going to suit Arsenal very much. Who do you expect to be starting in that game? Can you see Martinelli coming back in for that game, just given his pace and given how much that could damage Tottenham?
No, I think Trossard will start, and I hope Trossard starts.
Is that purely based on just how good he's been? And
how good he's been, and I genuinely think that's what Arteta will do, and I feel like Martinelli will, off the bench, maybe will have a bigger impact than what Trossard could do. In terms of, like you said, his pace when he gets maybe a bit more leggy defence of Tottenham.
Yeah.
I think Tottenham have caught us at the wrong time as well, because I feel we've seemed like we've had that little slip up, which people have called like against Villa, and we've bounced back from it. So we've got a bit between our teeth now, and I think we'll go and beat them. I'm quietly confident. Well, I'm loudly
you said
confident.
it now, mate.
Yeah, loudly confident. But I think it could be a similar style game to Chelsea's one, but maybe just a bit more quality, obviously from Spurs than what we see from Chelsea.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
But like I say, they're not in form. You're right. I think you're right that in the sense that from an Arsenal perspective, this is coming at a very good time. Spurs are not in form. Arsenal are bang in form. So, if you looked at it with a rational head on, you would say that Arsenal can come away with the win. But we never know.
Is Udogie, however you say his name, is he fit? He is, isn't he? Because I think when Saka's up for it, he Cucurella was struggling against Saka.
He was, yeah.
I think that's a big part of our game, because we've got Ben White, Odegaard, and Saka all sort of operating on that right hand side.
Yeah.
3 of our best players. So if Udogie's not fit, then they could be in trouble. But because I know he has had some injuries.
Yeah, I think he might be out for the game.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, I think he might be out for the season.
Oh really?
I might have read that the other day. So. That can only be really good news for Arsenal, because, like you say, they're so dangerous down that right. And by the way, we didn't speak about Ben White earlier.
Yeah,
fantastic in that game against Chelsea. He was so good. Can't wait to see him for England this summer.
Yeah, thing is, I love Ben White, because everyone just thinks he hates football. When you watch him on a football pitch, he works the hardest out of anyone. Like him and Odegaard probably work. He's up and down 90 minutes. Like people get the wrong impression of him, I think, because he's, they say, goes to the sunbed a lot and he doesn't like football, but he's so good.
Can I ask you about that, not liking football? Because I find this so interesting. And you've been in an environment with obviously, players. You're clearly a big football fan, obviously, and I would imagine that most footballers are big football fans. But did you ever play with players who had just less of an interest with it? And why do you think that was as well?
What it is, so I'm a massive football fan, but since I've been injured, I've become an even bigger football fan in terms of away from the training ground, talking about it with my friends. But when you're playing football every day, you're there all day, you're playing on the matches, that's all your life is. Away from the training ground, you do just want to switch off and not really talk about football. And that's what I think a lot of footballers are like that. A lot of footballers will leave the training ground, other than the matches they play and the football they train, then they won't really watch too much football. They won't really talk about too much football. They want to go home and switch off from that.
I know this sounds really strange, but is it almost like a taboo subject in the dressing room if you're talking about other football? I don't know.
In the dressing room, no. It's more away from it, I think.
Right.
So you'll find a lot.
So if you met up for like a social or something like that,
you're
never going to sit there and go, "Oh, did you see Everton beat Liverpool last night?"
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a conversation.
No, it depends who. So you do get some who still will just be football. But I'd say it's split 50-50. Like a lot of players will not away from, like I said, they just wouldn't want to talk about it. They wouldn't want to watch any other games. They just don't. It's just too much otherwise for a lot of people.
In that sense, then, do you think what Ben White said for you when you heard that, you're like, yeah, that makes sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wasn't shocked at all, because I think people got the impression that he doesn't like being there when he's training at the training ground, and he's sort of like, I don't really like this sport, but I'm good at it. I'll just play it. No, that's not the case. He said before he loves playing football, but he just doesn't watch it. His dad wasn't a fan of it when he was growing up. He doesn't watch it when he doesn't play. When he's away from the training ground, he just doesn't speak about it.
And what about the accusation of, come on, mate, you're in a title race. You should be watching Man City. You should be watching Liverpool. What did you make of people?
Because you can take that so far. You can just say that about absolutely anything. You could be like, you could say to Arteta, why did you sleep 8 hours last night? You could have got 6 hours and watched 2 more hours of football. Like you can make that argument about absolutely anything. So it's for me, there's benefits to not having it 100% in your mind 100% of the day. So yeah. What's your
really interesting? Yeah.
What's your official prediction for Tottenham Arsenal?
Oh, good question. I think that Arsenal will win 2-0.
Yeah, do you want to go even further with the goal scorers?
Goal scorers.
Yeah, because if you get it right, then you're the man.
Podcast, isn't it? I am the man, to be fair, if I get it right. Come on then.
And if not, I just cut it out.
I think Saka's going to score a penalty. So this is right. Saka can score a penalty in the first half. That's not very specific, is it? Do I have to give you a minute?
Fine.
But given how this has gone so far, I need to give the minute.
Well, listen,
so
you can.
31st minute.
Wow.
And then there'll be a late. They'll wrap it up late. Odegaard 82.
Nice. I like that.
I also got the lottery numbers if you want them. So.
I tell you what, I'm going to agree with you. I think Saka will score a penalty. I think it's going to be 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1.
Yeah.
Okay. So Spurs will get a goal.
And I think it goes 1-1, and then Arsenal will get 2 in the second half. 1-1 first half.
Who's scoring for Tottenham?
I think it will be.
If you say Werner, you might as well
Johnson.
Avoid it. Johnson. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I think it'll be Werner. No, I think it'll be Johnson 3-1.
Okay.
Saka, Havertz, and Havertz.
Havertz on the same
I reckon he's getting 2,
again.
and he can just silence all the critics.
Well, it's going to be 4-0 Spurs now, isn't it? Now we've said all that.
Yeah, well, I hope not. But listen, I think we'll leave it there. It's been a good chat. Thanks for coming on. Thoroughly enjoyed it,
mate. Been fantastic. Thanks for having me.
and we'll see how they get on Sunday.
Yes, we will. Yeah, can't
Lovely.
wait for it.
Sounds good.
Heard it here first. Saka 31, Odegaard 82. That's what's going to happen.